The Sports Town Podcast.
Hello, it is Sunday, May 2nd, 2021. Today's episode is a banger. We discuss the NFL Draft and Aaron Rodgers. First up comes Eric Toft of eToft21 Sports to discuss the NFL Draft, and he gives a lot of grades on all the teams that selected in the first round. You'll love that conversation, especially if you're a football fan. You can check out Eric Toft's podcast out on Google Podcast, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. That was a great conversation, and you'll love it, especially if you love football. Then we have Ryan from Packernet Podcast to discuss the Aaron Rodgers and the Packers' future. Now, I will warn you that there was some bad lag on my part. So again, the conversation won't be the best, but I still think it was still a great conversation. I know you will love it. Go check out Ryan's podcast, which is Packernet Podcast, on Instagram, at Twitter at Packernet Podcast, and you can find it pretty much wherever you get podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and much more. And as always, we have questions from Instagram, highlight of the week, the poll question, Jordan giveaway update, and much more. Also, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at SportsTown_podcast or on Twitter at SportsTownPod. I hope you enjoy today's episode of the podcast. All right, before we start today's podcast, I'd like to tell you more about the Jordan giveaway update. So it's pretty much you can get any type of Jordans you want for $200 or less. Now, again, the rules are pretty simple. All you have to do is follow us on Instagram at SportsTown_podcast. Now, you can have up to 3 entries. First, of course, follow us on Instagram and then screenshot for proof. Your second entry, tag at least 2 friends. And your third entry, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you already have, like any of the videos that you have not. Also, put on the comment section what shoe you want and what size you want. Even if the pair of Jordans haven't came out and they're less than $200, I will give it to you. Like the new Zions, I believe they come out on May 19th. If you want those and you end up winning the contest, I will give them to you. So again, that's pretty simple, $200 or less. The contest ends at May 12th at 1 a.m. Eastern, so you have time, but do it before you forget, because that's a great way. I mean, it's a free pair of Jordans, dude. Like, that's unbelievable. So, unfortunately, I can't do it more than $200 because that's against the rules, and again, this isn't my full-time job. So, anyways, go check that out. I'll be greatly appreciated, and may the best person win. And now, time for the highlight of the week.
For Indiana, different pieces, different parts, showing different defenses, but just not a quickness.
Inside Jeff Green. Another one for Uncle Dunk.
And now it's time for a weekly poll question. You can vote at Instagram and Facebook at SportsTown_podcast or on Twitter at SportsTownPod. Now, this week's question was, who had the better draft, the Chicago Bears or the New England Patriots? Majority of you said the Chicago Bears, and I would agree with you. Drafting Justin Fields at a number 11, they did a great job, and I think they finally have their future quarterback. Needless to say, this is Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace's last chance to do well. If they don't do well this season, don't even win a playoff game or make it to the playoffs, there's no excuse. They're going to get fired. So I like the Bears pick a lot. Thanks again for voting. You can vote on Instagram and Facebook at SportsTown_podcast or on Twitter at SportsTownPod. And now, on to the Sports Lightning Round. The Carolina Panthers have picked up Sam Darnold's 5th-year option. Darnold's salary is worth $18.858 million. Darnold was traded to the Panthers last month for 3 draft picks that included a 2022 second-round pick. The former USC product struggled in his first 3 years with the Jets and was eventually traded. The Panthers have also picked up DJ Moore's 5th-year option as well. There were reports that Carolina was considering drafting a quarterback, but they decided not to, and they drafted defensive back J.C. Horn from South Carolina instead. Panthers head coach Matt Rule confirmed the news and is excited to work with Darnold, the former USC product. Kansas has found a new head football coach. The Jayhawks have hired former Buffalo head coach Lance Leopold. Pete Thamel of Yahoo Sports was the first to report the news on April 30th on Friday. Leopold's contract has not been confirmed just yet. The Jayhawks were also considering Texas A&M's coach, Louisiana's Tech coach, and Army's coach as well. The former Buffalo coach will replace Les Miles, who was fired after just 2 seasons at Kansas. In Leopold's 6 seasons at Buffalo, his record was 37-33. Before he was at Buffalo, he helped Wisconsin Whitewater win 6 titles in just 9 seasons. Kansas hopes Leopold can give them their first winning season since 2008. The 147th Run for the Roses was back to its normal date in May. The Kentucky Derby is always scheduled for the first Saturday of May, but because of the coronavirus pandemic last year, it was moved to September with no fans. However, this year, Churchill Downs welcomed 60% capacity, which equal to about 50,000 fans. Medina Spirit won the 2021 Kentucky Derby, followed by Mandalone, Hot Rod Charlie, and Central Equality. It was trainer Bob Baffert's 7th Kentucky Derby win and jockey John Velasquez's 4th win at Churchill Downs. Central Equality was the betting favorite at 5-2 but finished in 4th. Medina Spirit, the winner of the 147th Run for the Rose, was projected to finish 4th. Hot Rod Charlie's odds were 5-1, Known Agenda were 11-1, and Rock Your World was 5-1. The NHL officially has its newest franchise. The Seattle Kraken have made their final payment to the league, which came at $650 million to join the National Hockey League. After the news was broke, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman stated, "On behalf of the Board of Governors, I am delighted to officially welcome the Seattle Kraken to the NHL as our 32nd member club. With them officially becoming a team in the NHL, they are free to sign players and make trades. On July 21st, the roster will be a lot more clear when the expansion draft begins. Every team in the league is allowed to keep 9 players. They can protect 3 defensemen, 1 goalie, and 7 forward. The Kraken will play their home games at the Climate Pledge Arena. Seattle must select 20 players that are under contract for next upcoming season." Former welterweight Diego Sanchez has been released by the UFC. Sanchez was the first champion of Ultimate Fighter Season 1 and is 39 years old. Sanchez was scheduled to fight Cowboy Cerrone on May 8th. However, that fight has been called off. Sanchez was a huge part of the UFC's growth. However, tensions between the UFC and his coach were at an impasse. Josh Fabia, his coach, had control over Sanchez's social media accounts and phone. Fabia was not pleased that Dana White, the UFC president, was concerned about his health or Sanchez's health. Dana White told Yahoo Sports on Thursday, "I have an incredible, amazing relationship with Diego, and I like him very much, and I hope he is okay." He continued, "One of the sad things that happen, not just in fighting, but in sports, and I want you to quote me on this, are those creepy weirdos who come from God knows where and leech onto fighters or athletes. They never do any good for them." After he was released, Sanchez took to Instagram and stated, "Free at last, free at last." Atlanta Motor Speedway has announced they will allow full capacity in July for the Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart. This is the first time that NASCAR has allowed full capacity since the coronavirus pandemic began last March. Atlanta Motor Speedway has already hosted one NASCAR event, and for the first time since 2010, it will hold multiple races in one season. The Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart is scheduled for Sunday, July 11th at 2:30 p.m. LeBron James is back. For the first time in 20 games, James will be returning for the Kings. Versus the Kings. James suffered an injury to his right ankle after the Atlanta Hawks forward Solomon Hill made contact with him. This was the longest absence in his career. During James's absence, the Lakers went 8-13 and dropped from the 2 to the 5th seed. Because of an injury to the 4th-time MVP, the Lakers signed Andre Drummond and Ben McLemore. Anthony Davis also returned from injury. According to head coach Frank Vogel, the 4-time NBA champion will not have a minute restriction versus the Kings. However, the Lakers will do everything they can to keep him healthy. Right now, the Lakers are 36-26 and are the 5th seed in the Western Conference playoffs. They have 1 game lead over the Mavs and 2.5 game lead over the Blazers. It's happening. Logan Paul will take on Floyd Mayweather on June 6th in Miami, Florida. Mayweather is undefeated and will take on YouTuber Logan Paul, who is yet to win a fight. The fight was previously scheduled to take place in February but fell through. However, it will officially happen at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. The fight will air on Showtime, which Mayweather owns. You will also get a t-shirt if you buy a ticket to the fight. The pay-per-view is $49.99, and if you already bought the pay-per-view, you will get it free, which originally was scheduled in February. It's hard to believe a YouTuber who has never won a professional fight will take on Floyd Mayweather, one of the greatest boxers to ever do it. All right, I am pleased to be joined by Eric Toft of Eric Toft 21 Sports. How's it going, Eric?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Of course, last night, or actually at the time of this recording, it was the NFL draft happened just a few minutes ago. Um, what did you think of the first day of the 2021 NFL draft?
You know what? As a Lions fan, I'm happy we got a franchise tackle. I like what the Bears did. I mean, it was really interesting, and it was nice to see fans there. I'm really shocked about how much I missed fans, even though I liked last year's draft with how it was done.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of forget about how the fans are. Like, I think it was at UFC 261 on Saturday. Like, there were like fans at like 15,000. It was just kind of crazy how many fans there were and how much you really miss them. And I think they make such a big difference. And, I think Roger Goodell recently said that he hopes or he plans to have most stadiums at full capacity, which is going to be great because you get back to normal or close to normal. So we'll see what happens there. Let's start off with Trevor Lawrence. He goes to the Jaguars. That's not a surprise, but do you think the Jaguars do you think the Jaguars are going to be decent next year?
I think they're going to take all those young guys are going to have a little bit of a growing pains. It's going to take Lawrence a little while to get used to the NFL game and the speed. I think they're probably 2 years away, but I think it's important that he experiences the lumps and gets used to NFL coverage and everything. So I think next year is going to be a long year, and then the year after they're going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Urban Meyer's first year. I mean, Urban Meyer is similar to Trevor Lawrence, is not used to losing. Everywhere he goes, he wins, but he's in the college game that's completely different. So it'll be interesting to see what the Jaguars do. But I feel like there'll be more people liking the Jaguars just because, like you said, in a few years, I think they'll be a really good team. What did you think about their draft picks of Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne?
I was a little bit shocked that they drafted Etienne from Clemson. I thought for sure they're going to go on the defensive side of the ball. I thought they were going to stick with Robinson as their RB1 and try to look somewhere else. Because when you think about it, they have a lot of playmakers with the wide receiver core. So that pick kind of surprised me, but I like the player that they got.
I know this kind of surfaced, and I just recently saw this, but Tim Tebow, I guess, called or talked to the Jaguars about possibly trying out for tight end. What do you think about that?
If I was Tebow's dad, I'd say, son, it's time to get a real job. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? Like football, baseball, football. I thought he was actually pretty good on the SEC channel when he was doing their little pregame show. I think he should just go back to that. I think he kind of needs to give up the dream, not to be mean or anything.
Yeah, I mean, if he would have done that earlier, like when he was with the Patriots and tried to play tight end, I think he would have had a better shot because I think that was the time Aaron Hernandez kind of went through that whole scene. So I think, like I said, I kind of agree with you. I think it's time for him to, just kind of give up on that. But I think he missed his opportunity of playing tight end when he was with the Patriots and even when he was with Jets. I mean, that was just that was messed up the way it happened. He wasn't really a quarterback, and I feel like if he would have played tight end earlier, that would have been a better scenario. So let's go into the next place. The San Francisco 49ers take Trey Lance. I was a little shocked. I thought they were going Mac Jones. I do think Trey Lance is a better quarterback, but how do you think Trey Lance will do in his first year in San Fran?
I think he's a project. I think it's going to take him a little while to get used to it. I think that's why they didn't used to the NFL game. I think that's why they didn't trade Jimmy Garoppolo. But yeah, I was really shocked they took Lance too. That kind of caught me a little bit off guard.
Speaking of Garoppolo, do you think he'll stay with the Niners at least for this season?
For this season, they have to. I really think that this team's built to win now, especially if Bosa comes back and they can add that pass rush and have the quarterback go through his progressions. So I think he gives them the best shot of winning now. And the thing that the Lance pick surprised me is, I mean, honestly, if Shanahan doesn't win like this year or next year, he's going to be back to being an OC. They're kind of in a win now situation with them. And I don't think Lance is the best win now quarterback prospect that was on the board at that time.
Yeah, I mean, if I was the Niners, I would have probably taken Justin Fields because, I mean, to be honest with you, they could have probably I don't know if they could have got Lance at 12 if they wouldn't have moved up. But in my opinion, if I was the Niners, I would have taken Justin Fields. But we'll see what ends up happening there with the 49ers. Yeah, as you mentioned, they're a must-win now team. And I feel like, if Kyle Shanahan doesn't get this right, he's not going to be a head coach very much longer. You mentioned you're a Lions fan. They took Penny Sewell. I was a little stunned that they took an offensive tackle. I thought they would go like wide receiver Devontae Smith. But what did you think about the Lions pick for Penny Sewell?
I loved it. I think this guy is the one guy in the class that is a bona fide Hall of Famer. I can't even remember the last time we had just a Pro Bowl season for an offensive tackle. Yeah, that's how bad our line is. We have so many, I hate to say we, but Lions have so many holes. They need everything. And I'll be honest, I like Smith, the player, but he's just so small. I don't feel like he can last the whole NFL season. And if you're going to take a wide receiver that high in the top 10 or the first round, I feel he needs to be a wide receiver one. And with Smith's size, I don't think he is.
How long do you think Jared Goff will be with Detroit? Because I feel like he could be gone after this season, even if he has somewhat of a decent year.
Oh, they are totally tanking for the quarterback from North Carolina. I'm spacing on his name. Of course I am now, but Sam, last name starts with H, but they're tanking on that guy. That's who they want their quarterback to be. So next year is going to be a long year for my Lions.
I think Matt Stafford's going to have a great year with the Rams, and I'm kind of glad Stafford got out of there because he tried so hard for that team, for that franchise, and they just never could put it together. But, speaking of Matt Stafford, how well do you think the Rams will do this season?
I think the Rams are going to do good. I think the big key for them this offseason was that whole Aaron Donald thing, because that defense is completely different when he's not out there. And for that thing just to be a farce and him not facing any suspension was huge. So I think that's big. That was the big thing for them. Stafford, huge upgrade over Goff. He'll take more shots down the field. And Goff's big issue is throwing when he had people in his face. And Stafford's been doing that for years in Detroit. So, that's a huge upgrade for them.
Yeah, I feel like the Rams have a very good shot of going to the Super Bowl this year. They have the team. It's going to be fun to watch the Rams because I feel like they could win 12 or 13 games. And finally, Matt Stafford, finally people realize how good a quarterback he is, because most people, when they see Matt Stafford, they just say, oh, he's just a good stat quarterback. But you don't realize that Matt Stafford does so much. And the only time people get to see him is like on Thanksgiving games, and then they totally forget about him. So I'm rooting for Matt Stafford. I hope he has a great season with the Rams. And I kind of hope they make the Super Bowl, at least make a run at it. Let's go back to Devontae Smith. He goes to the Eagles at number 10. Do you think the Eagles should have done that, or do you think the Eagles should have stayed at 12 and got a different receiver?
I think they just should have stayed put and seen how the draft board kind of broke. Because the Cowboys, because they traded with the Cowboys, if I'm spacing right, and was it the Cowboys?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, they traded with the Cowboys. The Cowboys obviously wanted Horn or the cornerback Sutton from Alabama. So the Cowboys, you know what I mean? Like, Cowboys wanted to move back as is. Cowboys were never going to draft a wide receiver. I think they could have stayed put, and I think they could have got Smith.
Well, it was weird to see two division rivals, especially the Eagles and Cowboys, who hate each other, and they actually did a trade together, which was really weird. But yeah, as you said, I think the Eagles probably could have stayed with Devontae Smith. I like Devontae Smith, but I don't know how long he'll last. But it is a different game now, so we'll see what exactly happens with Devontae Smith. But I think I think it's what the Eagles needed. But I don't even know if Jalen Hurts is the future, really. But do you think Jalen Hurts is the future in Philly?
Well, back to what you said about the wide receivers, all their wide receivers they have are just field stretchers. So they definitely got somebody that's a playmaker. Piggybacking what you said, I'm not a big Jalen Hurts guy. I think he's very limited at what he can do, doesn't have the arm strength, very inaccurate. I don't think he's the future at all.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Eagles do, because I feel like they were flirting with a quarterback, but just decided to keep Jalen Hurts for 1 year and see what he does. I feel like that whole Carson Wentz situation kind of got screwed. But speaking of Carson Wentz, how well do you think he'll do with the Colts this season?
I think it depends on who they draft or who they trade for to play left tackle. Their left tackle retired. I think Wentz has the yips right now. He's scared to get hit. They need someone reliable on that left tackle position to protect his blind side. And it's all contingent on that.
Well, I'm a little shocked right now. The Colts really haven't done anything else in free agency. They have so much money, it feels like, every year, and they don't do much. And really, they only have T.Y. Hilton at the wide receiver. I know they have a plethora of running backs, and they have Jack Doyle at the tight end position, but why do you think the Colts haven't really done much at the wide receiver position?
I think they're probably going to draft somebody. This wide receiver class, the two Moores, Rondell, and the kid from Ole Miss, Elijah, are still on the board. Plus, they got Pittman last year. And Paris Campbell has always been high, but he always gets hurt. So maybe they see him as their slot receiver, and then they'll get one of the Moores. But to answer your question, I really don't know.
What do you think about a guy like Tutu Atwell? Do you think he would fit well with the Colts offense?
That's a tough question, man. I mean, I don't think so. I really don't. With how it's built, I don't think so.
I feel like Tutu Atwell kind of plays similar to T.Y. Hilton, but at the same time, I feel like the Colts need more of a receiver to be like a red zone threat receiver, not necessarily a speed demon, but we'll see what happens there with the Colts. It's going to be interesting because I think they'll win that division, but the Titans are going to be solid again this year, especially if Derrick Henry has another monster season. Do you think there's a dark horse team that could come out of nowhere and possibly compete this year for a Super Bowl?
I think the Chargers can. I love the pick from Slater. He's versatile. He can play all over the line. They have Bosa that can get to the quarterback. They also, Austin Eckler is going to be back from injury. I think they have all the pieces. And if you look at it, the only teams that have been to the Super Bowl where their quarterback wasn't on a rookie quarterback was Tom Brady, Carson Wentz. Wentz was on his rookie contract, Matt Ryan, and Peyton Manning. So, I mean, looking at the rookie quarterbacks, I mean, I love what the Browns are doing, but is that really a surprise because they're expected to be there now? So, I mean, the under the radar team would probably be the Chargers for me.
I mean, yeah, if you just look at what Justin Herbert was able to do last year was very amazing. I mean, I don't know if he would have gotten Rookie of the Year if Joe Burrow would have played the whole 16 games, but Justin Herbert was very impressive, especially toward the end of the season, and it's going to be fun. I mean, it's kind of too bad the Chargers are in LA now instead of San Diego because I feel like they'd get more exposure if they were in San Diego because they have like no fans. But I mean, I'm excited if the Chargers are good. I would like to see that because I think Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback, and I think, like I said, guys like Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, all those guys. What did you think? I saw the Buccaneers, their last pick in the first round, or actually, do you think the Buccaneers will take a quarterback in the second round to replace Brady in a few years, maybe?
I don't. It all depends like how it breaks down. I mean, I really think they need a defensive lineman because Sue's getting up there. If the kid from Texas A&M Bond, he's still on the board, I could see them taking him. I think he could project to be a good quarterback, but he needs to sit for a little bit in the third or fourth round.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were talking about, I think it was Chris Sims of Pro Football Talk. He thought maybe that Justin Fields would fall all the way to number 32 to the Buccaneers, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought Fields was going to fall, but I didn't really think he was going to fall that late. But I don't know. I feel like the Buccaneers do need a quarterback eventually because Brady, it doesn't seem like it, but I think Brady's going to eventually get older and he's going to have to retire.
Father time is undefeated. You know, it's only a matter of time, but it's so weird because like we saw tonight, like there's like some picks that just come out of left field and everyone's like, whoa, you know, like the Raiders pick with Leatherwood, that some picks just come out of left field. And it's just always hard to predict like how their board will play out.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Raiders. I mean, it seems like every year they draft a player that we don't know about or that we think that's maybe a second or third round pick. Like they took, Cleveland Farrell a few years ago, and he was more of a second round grade guy, and they took him with the fourth overall pick. And it seems like the Raiders are always that team that, you know, takes a guy that probably shouldn't be a first round pick and takes him. And usually they kind of struggle. So, I mean, do you know why the Raiders possibly do that every year?
I wish I could answer that. I hated what they did last year. I mean, I like Alex Leatherwood. I think he's going to be a good pro, but that's a guy that could have gotten pick 48. You know, like it just doesn't, what Mayock and Gruden do just don't make sense. They always reach for players.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how that always works because I feel like the Raiders are always that team, even before Gruden, before Mayock. They were always, I mean, back in the day when when they were really good, they would always draft guys like that we wouldn't expect, or they're really the fast guys. And it was really weird how the Raiders would do that. But I mean, we'll end up seeing what happens with those like guys like Alex Leatherwood. We haven't talked about Justin Fields yet. What do you think, or how well do you think he'll do with Chicago?
I think he will do good wherever he goes. We have to remember when he came out of high school, he was rated higher than Lawrence. And everyone seems to forget that. He went to Georgia. He got low on the depth chart. He had to go to Ohio State. I really feel if he just would have went from Ohio State from the get-go, he would have been the top pick overall and not Fields. I'm waiting for the 30 for 30 on why he fell. It doesn't make sense to me why, with everything he does, the mobility, the athleticism, the deep ball. Yeah, he makes some bad reads, but all these kids make some bad reads. So it doesn't make sense why he fell that much to me.
Yeah, I don't know why, seemed like they were always trying to find something against Justin Fields. And it feels like every year, at least every draft, there's always a quarterback that falls late, like Justin Fields this year. I think a few years ago it was Dwayne Haskins, but of course Haskins wasn't very good. The year before that, it was Lamar Jackson. It seems like almost every year you have that quarterback that falls. But it was just weird how Justin Fields, this really good player at one time, the second best quarterback outside of Trevor Lawrence, and all of a sudden when, the end of February after he declares to the draft, he's possibly a late first round pick. It was just weird how they kept on finding things against him. And I think he'll do well. And I'm just really shocked the Bears made the right pick, because we'll see what ends up happening with the Bears. Because as you mentioned earlier, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, they are pretty much fighting for their job, because if they don't get this right, they're probably going to be out.
Oh, for sure. And this trade screamed, hey, I'm trying to make up for not drafting Mahomes and Watson by trading up for Fields because he was still on the board. That's what the pick screamed to me. The trade, excuse me.
Yeah, it was. If we go back to 2017, it was just like I didn't know much about Mahomes, and I don't really get mad at the Bears for not drafting Mahomes, but they had a chance to draft Deshaun Watson, who everybody thought was the best quarterback going into the draft that year. And it was just weird how they traded so much spots for Mitch Trubisky, and maybe they thought something with Trubisky because some people did say he would do well in the NFL, but that just was a complete waste of a pick. And yeah, as you mentioned, I think, like I said, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, they better get this right, which I think with Justin Fields, they got it right. They have the defense. It's going to be interesting to see what the Bears do this season.
A lot of pressure on Nate. A lot of pressure on that guy.
Yeah, he did well his first year, but these last 2 years have been very disappointing. And I feel like he has to win at least a playoff game this year in order to keep his job. So.
Oh, exactly. I agree with you 100%.
All right, as we wrap up the interview, you have your podcast. Can you tell us more about it, how it came to be, all that good stuff?
Last year during the lockdown, I was approached by somebody to talk about, before the lockdown, I was approached by my friend Gino to come on his podcast and talk XFL. I just kind of piggyback from that. I do a weekly podcast every Saturday, just talk about the week in sports. I do a lot of sports betting stuff. I talk about sports betting angles. And every Saturday, my boy Brandon, who's an iRacer, come on and we give an in-depth NASCAR preview.
Okay. Actually, now that you mentioned the XFL, when do you think the XFL will be able to come back?
I hope next year, because I don't know about you, but that dead period when there's no football is really hard for me. So I love the sport of football. I really hope it comes back. I thought overall it was a good product, but I think a lot of it just depends with how this COVID stuff plays out, because unless they have live fans, I don't see it working.
Well, you mentioned COVID. I think the XFL was doing really good before the COVID shut everything. And I think they had some good rules, like the challenge rule with the Xbox and only going a minute. And then once a minute happens, then you make the ruling. Because it seems like in the NFL, they have that where they challenge something and it takes forever. And it takes at least 10 minutes just to get a call overturned or keep the call the same way. So I do think the XFL had a lot of good ideas, and I'm definitely excited for it to return. All right. Thanks for joining. Again, you can check your podcast. Are you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify?
I'm on Apple Podcast. It's the ETOF 21 Sports Podcast. Comes out every Saturday midday.
All right. Thanks for joining. Again, I had a pleasure talking. I love talking football, and good luck to your Lions.
Thanks, man. We're going to need it. It's going to be a long road.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I'm pleased to be joined from Ryan from the Packers.net podcast. How's it going, Ryan?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Let's start off with it real quick. You know, you're a big Packers fan. Had some disappointing news the other day. Aaron Rodgers wants out of Green Bay. How do you feel about that?
Still in the process of processing it, because it you knew that he wasn't super happy with the Jordan Love thing, but I guess I didn't realize it was this bad. I kind of figured it was the way that we all thought it was Rodgers is saying, hey, I want to be here. I want to retire here. And they're kind of pushing me out. And I'm not happy about that. And it's like, I can understand that, but they got to do what they got to do as far as preparing for the future. What we've learned, or at least, and it's hard to parse out what's real and what's not, but what we've learned is that the Packers are kind of almost borderline begging him to come back and like, look, we'll do pretty much whatever. And he's like, no, I'm done. Like, I want out. I don't want to come back anymore. There's nothing you can really do. Latest today, and again, I don't know if it's true, but the latest today is that he's saying, I'm not coming back as long as Gutekunst is the GM. And it's like, dude. So, I mean, it sounds like it's very unlikely he's coming back.
If he doesn't return to the Packers, could you see him getting traded, or could you see him just retiring and maybe just doing Jeopardy full time if he gets the gig?
That's what's so hard to figure out, is what's going through his head right now. It's almost so ridiculous trying to figure out what would cause him to be this irate, to the point where it's like, I feel like it's almost like an excuse. Like he wants to move on. I don't know if he wants to move on with his life outside of football, or if he wants to move on to a new, I guess Shailene, his fiance, has got family in Denver. He obviously has ties to California. I don't know if he's just trying to push his way down the line there, or maybe he does want to retire. I can tell you, as a Packer fan, I'm terrified that he's going to retire, because I'm looking at a league MVP. As much as I'd love for him to play for us, we could bring in a massive haul if we could trade him. And we're probably going to need that if we don't have him. And if he just retires, I mean, we'll get a little bit of a bump on as far as the money that we're going to have. But I mean, that's a big difference. We're talking, it's got to be a bare minimum of like 3 first-round picks that we're just losing, because he's like, nah, forget this, and walks away. And that would be unbelievably painful.
Yeah, like I said, it's an interesting situation, because I feel like when the new GM for the Packers came in, him and Rodgers like basically butted heads right away, and it's really interesting. And then also I saw that he was possibly interested in joining the Raiders, which wouldn't make any sense. They don't have much over there, but I know John Gruden loves him, and I guess Gruden is a player's coach. Do you see a scenario where he winds up in Vegas?
The only thing I could think again is that they're very pliable. I think they've done a terrible job of drafting. Obviously, their GM defers to their coach in order to draft. Who knows? I mean, if they're just like, come on in here and we'll just do it together, whatever, where he feels like he can take a lot of control, maybe he'd be interested in that. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the players there are not all that great. I mean, they did go out and try to stack up on wide receivers. They got a great running back. That's the only way I could really see that happen. I think a lot of it is control. And again, possibly this scenario where he just wants to bow out, which is the worst possible scenario.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough situation right now, and it'll be intriguing to see what happens. Do you think Jordan Love is the future?
So hard to say, because especially with COVID last year, we got to see almost nothing. I mean, the few reports we got were not super positive. But at the same time, it was like they were just working on footwork. Like they had to rework his whole footwork and all that. I did like what I saw in college, especially in terms of his fit with that whole Shanahan, Matt LaFleur kind of a system. But it's so hard to tell as far as will he be ready. I think that's part of the reason why I like the idea of getting more picks for Aaron Rodgers, because what you get is sort of a 1-year trial with Jordan Love. If it works out, cool. We take those picks and we load up to help him out. If it doesn't work, we're going to get a high pick because he sucks. And then we're going to take that high pick plus those other picks and try to move up and just try to find the actual quarterback of the future.
If Rodgers isn't with the Packers week 1, or if he doesn't play at all next season, he's not with the Packers anymore, what do you think the Packers record will be for this season?
Man, there are so many variables. I mean, I'll say it's less than what they've done in the past. It's not just the Packers too. I mean, the whole division is up in the air. I mean, we got to figure out what is Justin Fields for Chicago. Minnesota's kind of getting rebuilt. They might be kind of the head of that division. Detroit's kind of tear down and rebuild mode. I still feel confident enough in the team, depending on the continuity in the locker room. There's a lot of people worried that guys like Devontae and Bakhtiari are going to be mad if Rodgers leaves. They'll take a step back, but I'd say they're ahead of 8-8. Let's say a 9-win team. Just throw that out there. Or actually, wouldn't we got 17 games now, so we'll call it 10.
So, do you think Jordan Love, or actually, I'll give your opinion. Do you think Rodgers will be back with the Packers for Week 1 this season?
It's so crazy to say no, but I just don't see a path. I mean, things have gotten almost so toxic over the last couple of days. I mean, how do you even repair that? If the rumors are true that Rodgers said, there's two big rumors that are brutal. Number one is I'm not coming back as long as Gutekunst is there. And if they don't fix things to my liking, which those two things might be the exact same thing, but if they don't fix it to my liking, I'm not coming back. You come back from that. Even if you come to an agreement on a contract, it's like, dude, you're kind of a jerk, man. I don't think I want you here. So I'm unless something comes out where it's like a lot of this is made up and it's fake and it's not real, I'm kind of sitting at like 25% maybe that he plays Week 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it doesn't seem like it's true, and it doesn't seem like he's going to want to come back to Green Bay. And I don't really see a scenario where he gets traded because I feel like the Packers they don't want to trade him at all. And it's going to be a wild offseason, or at least a wild summer for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. What did you think about the draft pick of Eric Stokes in the first round?
I think it's one of those things where it's exactly what you would expect, right? As soon as it did it, it's like, we should have seen that coming. It's considered a reach. They're about consistently grabbing a guy about a round later than expected. High RAS, high athleticism. They're obsessed with athleticism. The corners are going to be extremely thin starting next year. They've got like one guy under contract, so it's a future pick, which is a very Packers thing to do. And he's a high character guy, which they're absolutely obsessed with. So as soon as they make the pick, it's like that makes perfect sense. I think we're all mostly excited. We're kind of all done with Kevin King, but with Jair really emerging and Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos having a real good second half of the year and kind of really blowing up at the second half, the prospect of how good this DB group can be, especially at the speed. I mean, you got, not only is he fast, but Jair is blazing fast. Savage is blazing fast. I know speed is kind of an overrated quality, but when you got that many guys running 4.3s, that's kind of cool. So I'm excited about it.
Do you think the Packers should have drafted a playmaker playmaker on the offensive side in the first round instead of a defensive back?
Not really. I mean, I think that's kind of an overblown thing. I wouldn't have been opposed to it, but again, I mean, wide receiver and corner are the two that are the thinnest after this year. So I think those were kind of high priorities. But again, if you look at what are the actual priorities outside of what the media is talking about with Rodgers needing help, he doesn't need help. He's got the number one wide receiver in football. He's got the number one left tackle. He had the number one center, who's now gone, but still a good offensive line. He's got a great running back. He's got a great second running back. And then the other wide receivers are maybe like low-end number twos, but he's not suffering. I mean, it was the number one offense in football. The whole thing is kind of crazy. So, they got Amari Rodgers in the third. I do think it's a need. I think the Packers wanted to address it. I don't think it was their biggest need. I think you could argue corner was a much bigger need. And if they did it, it would have been fine. But no, I don't think they needed to force that. I think that whole narrative is it's wildly overblown.
Yeah, I saw this stat that it's kind of crazy how it works, but it said both, Brett Favre, Bart Starr, two legend quarterbacks that both play for the Packers. They played for 16 seasons and then either retired or went to another team. Do you think that's a concern for the Packers now that Rodgers has finished 16 years in Green Bay?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously we're all very concerned with what's going on right now. I really did not expect year 16 was going to be the end. I thought it would be kind of soon, I figured within a year or two. And that's kind of the crazy thing about this whole scenario is, I think Aaron Rodgers was right. I think the plan was, we got our new regime in here. Rodgers seems like he's declining a little bit. We're going to get a guy. We're going to groom him. We're going to push Rodgers out. The crazy thing is Rodgers won. He won MVP. Packers are like, oh, shoot, I guess we were wrong. I guess we shouldn't have drafted Love. Maybe, I don't know. And so now they're committed. Rodgers is the guy. He proved it. He won. And now he wants to force his way out. So, I thought we had another year or two. I thought maybe we'll see what happens this year, see if Rodgers regresses, see if Love has a good year. Maybe we'll push him out next year, whatever. But I guess 16 is a magic number because it looks like he's he won, and he's going to just throw it in their face and say, I won, and now I'm out. I still can't wrap my head around what he's thinking, but it's something like that, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's disappointing for a lot of Packers fans. I know my brother and my dad are big Green Bay fans, and they were really disappointed when it happened. So, if the Packer, of course, I'm just hypothetically saying, if Rodgers doesn't return to Green Bay, who do you think wins the division this season?
Again, that's real up in the air. I feel like the safest bet would be the Vikings. They were kind of neck and neck with the Packers a couple years ago. They lost a ton of guys last year, but they're getting Danielle Hunter back. I think they got a decent quarterback. They did a lot to build up their offensive line. They got a good running back, great pair of wide receivers. And again, that defense is, they need some help at corner, but they really built up that defensive line, the pass rushers and whatnot. So I think that would be the safest bet, would be the Vikings.
It seems like the Vikings, though, every year they have a good draft, and just like they can't really put it together. And I think
Right.
I don't know if that's Kirk Cousins, or I feel like the coaching staff is good. So I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty good estimate. I do like the Bears drafting Justin Fields, but I think it's really on Matt Nagy to see how good the Bears do, because I feel like if the Bears don't win a playoff game, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace are gone. But how well do you think Justin Fields does in his first season with Chicago?
I mean, I like Justin Fields. I think the thing that frustrates me the most, and I mean, I like the picks. I like Justin Fields. They followed it up with what was it, Tevin Jenkins, I think. And it's a great pick. The problem is they traded up both times. They gave away all the rest of their picks. They gave away a ton of picks. They didn't pick until the fifth round. And they got another tackle, and they gave away picks for next year. And they've been giving away picks for years, which is why the team is eroding. It's constantly eroding. It's constantly getting worse. And they need those picks is the point. And so, look, they got a good quarterback, they got a good tackle, and that was important. But as guys are leaving, they don't have the tools to replace all these guys. So I'm skeptical about their ability, because I don't trust their GM to keep the fire stoked up. I think the team around Justin Fields is going to keep eroding. The offensive line is continuing to get worse. It's a very toxic place. They had a wide receiver that wanted to leave, and they've had other guys that have left and said, I'll play, but I'm not playing for the Bears. And I don't know why they brought Pace back, to be completely honest. I think they have a lot of potential, and they just keep ruining it, kind of similar to what you said about the Vikings. It always seems like there's something there, but there's just something wrong. They had the defense, but the offense wasn't there. And, the defense wasn't quite what it was last year. And, I think they got a decent window with a quarterback, a wide receiver, and a defense. But again, things are just kind of going downhill. And if they don't hit soon, I think it's going to be kind of just done.
Let's go back to the Packers for a little bit. Matt LaFleur, if the Packers don't make the playoffs this season, I'm assuming the Packers will give him one more year, but do you think he's out after this season?
No, I think they've done it. I mean, they were a 6-win team under Mike McCarthy and Ted Thompson. I thought we were headed to a dark era. I really did. The drafting was going poorly. They were not hitting on a lot of picks. The team was kind of eroding, like I talked about with the Bears. The locker room was super toxic, which the Packers always had a good locker room, but it was getting real bad. They hired a new GM, and in 1 year, after hiring Matt LaFleur and all these guys, in 1 year, they turned it around, went to the NFC Championship game, went back-to-back. He's one of the winningest coaches in NFL history. And again, I think the GM is doing a great job. He's had tons of hits in free agency and in the draft. And they're still trying to, now they got a new defensive coordinator, so we still got to kind of balance this thing out. But I think they've done such a good job. They got a pretty long leash, I would say. And if things are a little rocky with a new quarterback, no, they're not going to boot him out. I mean, even if it's a brutal year, I think he's got several years of bad play before they talk about moving on from him.
And again, thanks for coming on, Ryan. This has been a great conversation. Before we wrap up the interview, the Packers the last 2 years have gone to the NFC Championship, which is amazing. Why do you think they came up short both years?
It's such a good question. And it's almost hard, because you wish it was something simple, like we don't have the talent, or we don't have a quarterback, or we don't have this. It's really hard when I genuinely think they were the best team in football at that time. You could argue one or two other teams, but there's nothing they're lacking. You got the offense, you got the quarterback, you got the defense, you got the coach, the scheme, every little thing that you can nitpick and say you need to win, they had it. But for the second year in a row, they just didn't show up. I mean, your key players like Zadarius Smith and Bakhtiari was out, but he was bad against San Francisco. And your offensive line, your wide receivers, your quarterback, they just didn't play. And I just don't understand what that takes. And I guess right now, being optimistic, my theory is the problem is Aaron Rodgers. So once he's gone, that problem goes away. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. It's the most frustrating thing when it just feels like your team doesn't care in the biggest games. That's what really, really kills you.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Ryan. But before we wrap up, do you want to tell us more about your podcast and how long you've been doing it? And, I know you're a big Packers fan, stuff like that.
For sure, man. So it's Packernet Podcast. I do a daily podcast. I've got, I think, 1,060 shows now. I've been doing it since 2017. I've also got the Pack Daddy NFL YouTube channel. You can check that out. I haven't been doing a ton on that recently, but I do like to get on there, do a lot of draft content. Otherwise, Pack_Daddy on social media if you want to check me out on Twitter or whatever. But yeah, if you're a Packer fan, please check out Packernet Podcast every single day, and I'll keep you up to date on what's going on.
All right. Thanks for coming on. And I'm assuming, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you can get your podcast on?
Anywhere you find podcasts.
All right. That's great. Thanks for coming on, Ryan. And hope you have a wonderful night and good luck to the season.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, let's wrap up the show with our new segment, Questions from Instagram, where we take 3 random questions from either Wednesday or Friday, which I'll usually put it up Wednesday. This week I put it up on Friday, but you can ask us any sports question and we will most likely answer it on the next episode. So again, I got 3 questions. Don't forget to go to Instagram at sports_podcast and I'll put up on the story. The first question comes from at Nick the Bulls fan, and at Nick the Bulls fan 26, and he asks, what team do you think in the NFL draft had the best draft overall? Well, Nick, that's a good question, and I believe the Bears. Now, the Ravens did a great job of adding weapons for Lamar Jackson. The Bengals did a good job giving Joe Burrow some targets. The Giants were not very impressive, to be honest with you. They didn't need another receiver. They needed offensive lineman or defensive lineman or corner. That didn't happen. Another team, too, that was impressive, the Patriots. They finally got their future, it looks like, in Mac Jones. He's very similar to Tom Brady. We know Belichick has a type, I guess. But I would say the Bears, they finally got their quarterback. It's up to Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy to make the right decisions, because if they mess up, it's their fault and they're not going to have a job much longer. The second question, and again, thanks for giving the question, Nick, and greatly appreciate it. And if you want to do it next time, you can do it as well, and we'll most likely answer it. The next question comes from at ShrimpLover77, and he asks, should the MLB change their playoff format? Well, I would say yes, they should change playoff format, but not to the way they did last year. Do 3 in each, or do 6 in each division, or 6 in each league, and 3 division winners and 3 wildcard teams. And the first 2 series do 3 out of 5, and then go 4 out of 7 in the ALCS, NLCS, and the World Series. I feel like 5 or 10 from each, 10 altogether is not enough. 18 is way too much. I think 12 is good. Again, you get 6 in each conference, or I like that the best, or each league. So that's what they should do. I'm not sure they'll go to that, but they should go to that way. All right, this last question comes from at Billy77, and he asks, will Aaron Rodgers be the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers in Week 1? Well, originally I would say yes, and I would say Aaron Rodgers will probably figure something out. But talking with Ryan from the Packernet podcast, he does not think so. And I think a lot of Packer fans are really worried right now that he's not going to be with the Packers in Week 1. He could be not even retired and just not reporting to the Packers. So I'm going to say no, he's not going to play. And unfortunately, all the Packers fans are really getting nervous right now. And I feel like it's really hard to get nervous because I feel like Rodgers is still pissed off at the organization. So I'm going to say no. Really sad to see for Packer fans, not for the Bears, Vikings, and Lions fans. But Packer fans, it might be time to start freaking out, because it looks like Aaron Rodgers might not put a Packers uniform on again. So again, thanks for giving us the question, and let's go on to our next segment. Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.